we're here at IBC 2024 at the RAI in Amsterdam.
IBC is an absolute focus for us.
The bit of the diary that doesn't move every year.
Everything happens here. If you're in media and entertainment, you need to be here.
This kind of experience, you cannot get that online.
Shaking hands, having a drink, listening to some presentations.
There's something intrinsic about making that connection to the person face to face.
To share ideas, to reconnect. A meeting place for friends in the industry.
I can learn more in one day than I generally do over the course of months.
It really is, the most magical way to sort of share content, share understanding.
For the technical space, present their ideas and what's happening and their point of view. To be here and see what everybody's doing, how everybody's innovating.
Sometimes you come here and you see something that you didn't even know you wanted, but it solved a problem for you.
We are not competing here. It's about really knowledge sharing between colleagues, peers.
To achieve great things creatively while also making it a business success.
It's such a joy collaborating on the future of the industry that we all love so much.
Seeing change happen and come alive right here at IBC.
To network, connect with your clients.
And to feel the state of the industry.
The most important thing is we make friends. And the friends are the ones that really help us when we are in troubles.
It's just good vibes. It's just a lot of expertise, and it's nothing but just a perfect event, to be honest.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's really great to see such a full room here. I'm Mark Smithy. I chair the IBC Council, which is essentially a feedback advisory group, really, for IBC. We take the suggestions, we take the kind of the connections of a very sort of esteemed group of exhibitors, of speakers, of stakeholders in the show, and we meet 4 times a year, and so I chair that and try to really, my role is really to try to steer the future of where the conference goes and where the show goes. So, in these changing transformational times, that's quite a big challenge. But I also founded and I head the IBC Accelerator Program, which is really a collaborative framework for innovation, bringing together the buyers of technology to actually set challenges and try to solve some of those challenges, or at least try to understand them better within a matter of months. So it's really a kind of an inverse of IBC, where you've got lots of technology companies that are selling you the next technology and what's coming around the corner, when in fact this is much more about an end user led approach to it, and to an audience led approach to innovation, trying to determine what's coming next. So I think some of the key headlines around IBC, you'll have seen it, very vibrant show this year, very dynamic. The feedback was a great buzz from the show. And the numbers definitely reflected that. You've probably seen the press release, but 45,000 visitors this year from 170 countries. That's up by about 2,000 on last year. 280 speakers across the event. We had something like 46,000 square meters with 1,350 exhibitors across the show. I think some of the key themes and the strongest things that were coming out of it for me, certainly, and I'm going to be the first to say it, obviously, AI. Of course, we can't, it had to come in the opening, but AI, of course, but I think a much more pragmatic approach to developing applications for AI. And we had lots of really great practical kind of applications in our new AI tech zone in Hall 14, which is a whole new feature area. And it was powered by the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union. But certainly things like, automated video editing and music audio separation, content provenance tracking, and secure kind of cloud storage. So some really practical things coming through after the years of some of the years of recent hype. I think news and disinformation was a big topic this year, and I'm proud to say we kind of led the way a little bit there with our accelerator project, which is called Design Your Weapons in the Fight Against Disinformation. And some really heavy hitters from the world of news, BBC, CBS News, CBC from Canada, Globo, AP, Reuters, Agence France Presse, ITN, TV2, Paramount Global, and the EBU amongst some of the champions. But, for the first time, sharing and collaborating on areas such as deep fake detection, content provenance, and collaboration, and actually info sharing about the intelligence around content and whether it's been either debunked or believed to be fake. And then, of course, the evolution of live production was a huge theme. And I'm very proud to say that one of our accelerators that was developed in the last few years, a private 5G network developed by University of Strathclyde with the BBC and with many others in the accelerator program, actually went from a lab environment back in 2021 right the way through to the Queen's funeral, the King's coronation, and then it was used ultimately at the Olympics this year on the opening ceremony and on the sailing. And you'd have seen some extraordinary pictures from the boats and from the windsurfers that you'd never have had the opportunity to see before without this kind of innovation. So I'm proud to say we had a great talent program this year, and that really has been a sort of more cohesive approach to bringing together many of the initiatives in the industry around talents. So the World Skills Cafe, run by Global Media and Entertainment Manifesto, but also RISE and many of those other great initiatives that came together in a more cohesive program. And I think we want to see much more of that as we go forward. Lots and lots of other highlights: sustainability, connectivity, cloud and edge compute, esports, all some of the other themes that we've had at the show. So with that, I think we had tons of content, and so I'd advise you to go check it out. Some of the stage content, free stages, but also the main conference had some great content that will all be online on the IBC site. So I'd really encourage you to go and check some of that out. Just to close, really, I'm going to, we'll talk a little bit more about the accelerators, I'm sure, here, but I want to just give you a little bit of kind of an inside track on our accelerator program. We'll be making a call for new submissions next week with a deadline of the 6th of December. And we're actually going to hold Kickstart Day, not here at the IET, unfortunately, where it's been for the last 2 years, but actually we've got a fantastic opportunity to have it at the BBC in the iconic Radio Theatre on February the 12th. So that Kickstart event, has really become one of the kind of IBC new events in the first quarter, and it's really quite a go-to. I don't know anybody here that's been to it, but it's fantastic for hearing about the next set of challenges and pitches, and for teams coming together to try and tackle some of these things. Happy to talk to anybody later about this, but really delighted to be here. Welcome you all, and introduce this wonderful night of reviewing IBC with the IET and the Royal Television Society. So thanks for having us, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mark. Please do take a seat. Thank you. I've noted that date down, February the 12th. I've attended, and they really are very inspiring days, actually, when you get so many people collaborating from right across the industry, universities, you name it. You've got there. It's a really empowering day. So February the 12th, yeah, that's marked for next year. Project
of the Year award that from 2024, from this year, that will be presented there. So that's quite a big highlight.
Indeed. And I've been a judge of your media innovation programme in the past. Obviously, we can't declare whether you are a judge now or for the future, but it's something I've really enjoyed judging in the past, getting to see firsthand those 8 amazing projects, and we'll come back to that. So thank you again, Mark. On behalf of the Royal Television Society, London branch and the IET, thank you very much for coming along tonight to listen in to the IBC review with an eclectic bunch of people that we've assembled for you. It's been a bit of musical chairs as well. You may have been expecting certain panellists, but I'm delighted to say what we've ended up with is what I'd have chosen all along. We've got a couple of people that couldn't make it for all sorts of reasons, which I'll come back to. So we're going to have a bit of a panel discussion. Once we've sort of exhausted time between ourselves, then I'm going to throw out to the audience, because I'm sure you've got plenty of questions, particularly if you weren't there, or if you were there, you might want to find out some more information or share your thoughts and insights as well. One plea to everybody, and this is for the panellists, contributors, and a note to myself as well: please don't get bogged down in broadcast acronyms. There's so many of them. Spell them out. Whilst we have some people in the audience that know every single broadcast acronym under the sun, there are many people that are not in the know and not familiar with all the sort of terminology. So please be mindful of that. And so I'm sure the panellists will play ball on that one. So as you can see, I've got 4 panellists in total tonight. We've already heard from Mark, who's obviously chair of the IBC Council. Delighted, we've got Jenny, Russell and Felicity. We're allowed to call her Flick with us tonight. If I can turn to Jenny Priestley first of all, who's the content director for TVB Europe. Jenny, just quickly give us an insight into your amazing media career you've had over the years.
Well, actually, I'm always a bit scared of saying this because I now edit a magazine about the technology side of the TV industry. But I actually started in radio back in the 90s, aging myself. And I went around the industry a little bit and ended up at TVB Europe just over 7 years ago, and I'm now content director. If you don't know TVB Europe, we are a magazine, a website, a newsletter covering the technology side of the industry. There's somebody over there who I'm going to be interviewing very soon. This is very strange because I'm a journalist. So sitting here being asked questions is a bit scary.
Yes.
I'm not used to it.
Well, you're doing very well so far, because this lady has interviewed everyone from Miss Piggy, Kermit, and Tom Hanks.
Yes.
But you didn't do Barney the dinosaur, which I have.
I bow to you.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks and his mug of tea on the red carpet many years ago.
Well, it's great to have you here, Jenny, and we'll be getting your thoughts on IBC in just a moment. And a friend of the show as well, Russell Trafford-Jones, we were here 2 years ago. You haven't aged a bit in those 2 years.
Trying to, I promise.
Yeah, no, and chair of the IET Media Technical Network, I hope I've said that correctly, host of Broadcast Focus and so much more. Russell, great to have you here. I know IBC is something you attend year in, year out, and you are, in essence, the broadcast industry. When I look at you, I think of broadcast.
It's nice to be here and to talk about it, because, and also with the perspective of the IET, everything that the IT stands for, including engineering a better future, is what happens at IBC. We're trying to do something better in the future, something which is more sustainable, something which reaches more people, which has got more diversity. And so I think that's why we're here, and there's that interest. That's why IET is one of the founding members, because this is all part of, albeit we're doing media right now, and the IT in general will talk about all sorts of things, from nuclear fusion to microwaves. But it's really important that we focus on the future, but make sure we do it now.
That's your engineering side come out, isn't it?
That's
yeah,
right.
Indeed. Good to have you here. And Felicity, or Flick Webster, is the marketing manager, BT Media and Broadcast, who has been to IBC, I think, 7 years. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Has been working there all that time. And Felicity, kindly, a very brilliant last-minute replacement for Ben Shepherd. Ben, design engineer at the BBC, and he was the RTS Young Technologist of the Year 2024. Can't be with us tonight, unfortunately, but he has sent me some notes, which he's asked me to read out at some point, so to get your thoughts on what he felt about the review. But Flick, great to have you here. And I love the shiny shoes, by the way. And you also won a prize this year for innovation. Was it the best stand?
Yep, that's correct. So it was an exceptional year for us as BT Media and Broadcast. My role is to sort of lead the marketing for that particular division of BT Business. And the IBC show is something that I've personally been responsible for delivering for the last sort of 7 or 8 years. I'm not really from a broadcast background. So I'm probably the odd one out here, but I hope that I will have some knowledge and insight to share with you all. So I guess what I can bring to the conversation today is a little bit of insight as to what it's like to be an exhibitor, how we try and prepare for the show, how we try and sort of lure you all to come and, look at our stand as opposed to one of the many other thousands that are there, and what are we trying to achieve, what do we observe from the visitors that come, the feedback that we get, and how we can continue trying to make the show brilliant for everybody.
Brilliant. And you didn't bring your trophy along tonight?
I didn't, no, I'm sorry.
I think we've got a picture of it. We'll show in just a bit. Brilliant, thank you. So that's the panel. Jenny, if I can start with you first of all. We've heard some of the overriding themes, haven't we, from Mark? But from your perspective, just give us a sense of your experience of this year's IBC. What was your takeaway?
So my experience of IBC every time I've been is completely different probably from anybody else's, because I spend all my time, literally every half an hour, doing what are called briefings. So I go and meet anyone from Sony, BT Media and Broadcast, NEP. I'm trying to think of names and they've all gone out of my head. And I go and meet them, and I'll meet somebody from the company, and we'll have a chat about what they're talking about at the show. And then we'll also have a chat about maybe something that I've heard pre-show that I might want to talk to them about, because then when I go home, I then turn that into content for TVB Europe. This is why I love IBC. I always say that IBC, I'm like a squirrel. I store up content for the winter. IBC gets me through the winter. So anyway, so this year I went in expecting to talk about AI because that's what we'd all been talking about, back in April at the big trade show that a lot of us go to. That was a big topic of conversation, and it had been in all the press releases I was getting before the show. It was all about AI. But actually, while I was at the show, and it may be because of the meetings that I did, and I've got to be really honest about, the thousands of people that exhibit at the show, I probably see about 30 companies because I do as many as I can, but by about Sunday evening, my brain's just going, stop talking! And all I want to do is go and sit in a quiet room. But for me, I went to the Grass Valley event on the Thursday evening before. And while I was there, I've completely forgotten his name. It's in my book. I think it's Ian Fletcher. Thank you very much.
A good heckle.
Thank
nice.
you.
Yeah.
Had started talking about, is the broadcast industry now an IT industry? And of course, that got my brain whirring. So that became one of the things that I talked to a lot of the companies about while I was at the show. And in fact, we'll be doing a big piece about that in our December issue. And I got, a range of answers. Yes, definitely, from Grass Valley. Other companies, no, not at all. And then others in the middle were, a bit, or we're going, yes, that's the way we're going. And I found that there's always something at a trade show that I'll kind of pick up on, and that will become my main focus. So actually, going in, I thought it was going to be AI, but coming out, it was that. And one of the things we did at TVB Europe, myself and Matthew, who's our content writer, with everybody we went to meet, we asked them to sum up the show in one word. And we created a word cloud, which we published in our newsletter on the Tuesday. And the overarching, the biggest word in our word cloud was busy.
Yeah.
Which was wonderful because, we've been going to the show. I've been going to the show since 2017. we missed it for IBC. And let's be honest, Mark, last couple of years, IBC's been getting back on its feet. So
sure.
It was wonderful that this year's show, from the meetings that I had with people, they were saying busy, and they were saying that broadcasters were there, ready to start engaging with vendors again.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And one of the things you mentioned to me in advance was that the broadcast industry is moving to become an IT industry, but it's so much slower because the standards are exceptionally high when it comes to broadcast. When you're talking about your public service broadcasters, is that something that is important to share with the audience? And why do you think that is? Is it because of those exceptionally high standards?
I think it is. I always cite, I'm a massive football fan. If I'm watching Liverpool and I can't see Mo Salah score because the feed goes down or something happens because they may be using the cloud or IP, then that's a huge issue. Not just for me, but all the other millions of Liverpool fans that are watching that game at the time. I always remember my very first IBC, before I got, walked up to the Rye, writing that SIPTE had ratified 2110. And yet I'm still, when I'm meeting broadcasters and vendors, saying, right, where are we? When are we going to be 2110? When's everyone going there? And the tier one broadcasters here in the UK are sort of dabbling their feet in it, putting their toes in the water, but they're not there in... Anyway, Strictly, if Strictly goes down on a Saturday night, we have an audience. Our customers, I say our customers, the broadcasters' customers are going straight on social media to tell everybody that it's not working. And I don't think there's another industry out, in the UK where you would get that much, maybe banking, but...
Probably mobile phone network.
Yeah,
but no one can complain.
But you know what I mean. It's the media.
That's true.
It is a huge issue. We are seeing there are some broadcasters that are looking at IP. I spoke to France Television about what they were doing for the Olympics back in May, and they were very much looking at IP for the work that they were doing on that. But I still feel that IP is... I think in another 7 years, if I was still asking them the same questions, I'd still be getting the same answers, if I'm really honest.
So the move to IP and cloud is ongoing?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but did you sense there was progress, though, this year?
I think there is progress, certainly in cloud. definitely, you know, we're seeing more and more virtualization, and even since COVID, doing the show, you're walking around the show, and where there used to be these stands with huge amounts of technology and equipment, and now they're screens, because that's the way that the vendors are able to show what they're doing. So there's been a real shift post COVID, and that, of course, is a lot of that has been driven by the move to remote production.
And Mark, do you get that sense of reality? Is that what you saw?
Absolutely, you're on the absolutely. The pandemic definitely accelerated strategies, very very much so around cloud, but also other aspects of it, like certainly a lot of the live production that we've been seeing in the last year now. There's very much a desire, I think, to move toward and therefore trial some things alongside. We've been working on this project, which Russell and the IET have been very active in, and TechX, your company, called Connect and Produce Anywhere, which is really about software-defined production. And it's all about, particularly where you have bandwidth constraints with live sports events that might be the other side of the country that doesn't have broadband, right? Doesn't have fibre. How do we therefore scale up the sophistication of the production to be able to broadcast that? So we've been looking at that, but it's been very much less about one provider of technology providing that end-to-end turnkey solution. And I think the broadcasters have wanted to see a more modular approach. They want to buy their graphics from somewhere over here. They want to buy their vision mixing from somewhere over there. They want to buy different components of that end-to-end cloud production. So it's about interoperability of many of these solutions as well, I think, now in that context. And that's where kind of we've very much been focused. Maybe you want to talk a bit more about what we've done this year with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it all comes down and fits in with what you're saying about IT and IP. There's a distinct difference between IP in the sense of having the massive bandwidth, uncompressed video in a building like this, and moving your production to the cloud, moving other parts of your whole broadcast chain to the cloud, because it's all IP, but it's a different challenge and it's a different setting. And I think it would be hard to find a broadcaster that hasn't got IP involved. But we're saying, how do we classify it? Is it a matter of saying, well, they're not IP because it's only play out? Is it, are we interested in studios being IP? And of course, just like any other technology, we just need to find what it is that's beneficial. And I think that the work on the IBC accelerators with the Connect and Produce Anywhere project is about understanding which combination of software and IP technologies works for you, but also being able to change that on a dime, and then the next day being able to use a totally different suite of functionality. And the question that we asked there was, how do you orchestrate that? How is the best way to facilitate this? Because what we did see, and we proved it, we can take out the same kit month after month, and we were experimenting with the types of failures you expect, but it did work. And the benefit was it was a really small amount of equipment, like really. So we got a lot of flexibility out of not very many years worth of kit, but there are many challenges ahead, and that's really the accelerators do.
Well, indeed, and actually it's just something that I was sent yesterday. It was Ender's analysis, which came out in October. I know you as a panel haven't had a chance to see it, or you've read it independently, but it talks about broadcast transition to IP, that internet protocol, accelerating, but a long way to go on digital terrestrial television. And a couple of the key things that caught my eye was by 2040, we estimate that half of all broadcast viewing will be via IP, with broadcast delivery remaining strong due to the live schedule. Broadcasters are accelerating their transformation to digital-first businesses, and we estimate that 17% of broadcasters' viewing on the TV set will have been delivered by IP this year, which I thought was fascinating. And then those free-to-air platforms have a more complex migration pathway to IP than pay TV, which I think is pretty obvious. Given the existing strength of DTT, digital terrestrial television, and its older demographic profile, digital terrestrial television, I'm trying to remember not to do the acronyms, will account for more broadcaster viewing hours than satellite and cable combined by 2029. I hope I haven't blinded everyone with science with those statistics, but did IBC reflect that, Mark?
I think definitely. You know, I mean, I keep coming back to the accelerators because that example we gave was about production, but we also had another project that was looking at ultra low latencies in kind of distribution, and almost trying to get that down to under 2 seconds glass to glass. And I think there is some genuine innovation going on in that field. I mean, around live sports, that really plays to some of the things you were talking about. As a viewer, you really want to see the action almost real time.
Latency as a viewer for hours.
Yeah.
2 minutes. I cut the cold a few years ago, so I watch everything via a smart TV, and I'm going to go back to Mo Salah scoring goals because I will get a text saying with a smiley face from my sister because she's watching it over traditional broadcast. And 2 minutes later, I will see why I've just got that smiley face. And Amazon, who now have the
Champions League,
was saying as part of their promotion, 10 seconds glass to glass latency. Well, I'd love to see that. If someone can give me a TV that does that and gives me a fibre into my home that does that, I'd be delighted.
Well, we did demonstrate 2 seconds with Comcast and with a number of our vendors that were involved in that. We had it on the BT stand, didn't we, as well, the 2 projects.
Yeah.
Demonstrating it.
Want to bring Flick in as well. I'll come back to you again, Russell. And you mentioned that you can share your thoughts and experiences on being an exhibitor at IBC, and you wrote a lovely post on LinkedIn, which you called this year your lucky 7.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that I suppose as a sort of technology company and as a vendor we have to try and think about, and my role as marketing, is how do we bring to life what it is that we're trying to showcase. And it's very difficult, particularly as you mentioned earlier, a lot of what we do now is software based. You can't actually physically see it. We're not going to bring along a big fibre cable or something, so well, look there, that's our network, great. So it's how do you really try and sort of represent that in the way that you showcase what you're doing. And for the last sort of few years, we focused very much on trying to deliver live content in new and exciting ways. So we did lots of sort of world firsts of things like 5G, a 3-way live 5G broadcast. We did the first ever 8K live broadcast. We did a big sort of collaboration with Samsung and Dolby Atmos when we were working more closely with BT Sport as well, when that was our sort of flagship brand, to do an amazing sort of high quality delivery of 4K with HDR and Dolby Atmos. And in our marquee, which we set up, we had terrible sort of dilemmas about where were we going to put all the sort of surround sound speakers so that actually you could hear the surround sound effectively, because the acoustics were terrible. So it's really about trying to sort of identify what are people going to be interested in, and how can we really sort of showcase what we're doing. And this year, we were trying to demonstrate low latency and high reliability within our networks. And our award-winning idea, as it turned out, was to actually try and bring it to life by having a Scalextrics track set up in our stand. And we had a complete glass-to-glass sort of setup of our network, whereby we had cameras trained on the Scalextrics track. People were able to play, so it was a kind of gamified experience as well. And then we actually had all the kind of encoding equipment on the stand. We were able to sort of take the live feeds from the cameras, encode them, send it across our network back to our switch at BT Tower, and then display it back on the screen right next to where the Scalextrics stand was. And it was, as far as the eye could see, real time. So that was the way that we tried to do it this year. And I think it obviously was judged as being a great idea, and it was award-winning. But I think going back to what you were saying, it's getting harder and harder for the likes of myself, marketeers, and the organisations that are trying to peddle their wares, because everything is becoming almost invisible. And you look at stands now and everything is screen-based, and it's how do you try and differentiate or make what you're showing different to what anybody else is doing, but also actually believably real as well, because everything could be canned. It's really hard to sort of find a way of proving that what you're actually showing is what you're really getting.
Well, you obviously cracked it because you won the award for innovation. And we love the green trousers, by the way.
Yep,
so,
thank you.
Why didn't you wear those tonight?
I did think about it. I was tempted, but I opted for shiny shoes instead.
Now, I know you're incredibly busy at IBC and you rarely get off the stand, but obviously you've got lots of clients and customers coming up to you and chatting to you, and they must talk about the show and what they're looking to get out of it and their observations as well. Any insights that you think would be useful for the audience to hear as to some of the key themes that clients were coming up to you chatting about?
I mean, I think it's a lot of some of the the subject matters that we've already talked about. I think there's still quite a lot of challenge in trying to really sort of bring these sort of use cases to life, and it's great. That's where it's brilliant to sort of be able to, I guess, do it in an experimental way with things like the accelerator programs, because it allows lots of companies to collaborate together, because I guess sort of, R&D is very expensive. We're an enormous organisation. We're one of the biggest investors in R&D in the UK outside of the pharmaceutical industry, but we won't, we're not in a position to be kind of investing in lots of the technology that sort of sits outside of what we do as a core business. And leaning into what Mark was saying as well about broadcasters and customers wanting to be able to have the choice to sort of pick and mix and to be able to actually work with the best of breed of whoever is, sort of leading the market in a particular part of the workflow. So actually collaborating together was a sort of really big theme. And what was really interesting to see when we were hosting lots of events on our stand, or when customers were coming, or just people generally walking by and visiting, was they were really interested to understand how we were partnering up with other people in the industry, what that was sort of delivering in terms of opening up capabilities and opportunities, allowing us to sort of experiment a bit more, really involve everybody in that sort of development and that sort of collaboration process. So I think for me, it was very much kind of the opportunity to get together as a sort of big melting pot of ideas. It didn't necessarily matter what the subject matter was itself. It was having the opportunity to be able to get together, chat to people that you might know, discover, new contacts that you might not know, and then build on those conversations and those relationships.
And that word collaboration, something you picked up on earlier, Russell, when you posted something online, and collaboration is the name of the game, isn't it? So again, talk to that. This event itself shows that collaborative outlook that IBC, because obviously IET and the Royal Children's Society are the founding partners behind IBC. So I think collaboration was important this year, wasn't it?
I think the premise of IBC with the numerous founding organisations is really good, because I think it underpins what we really should be doing, and definitely with the move into software and the cloud, it's supposed to give us more flexibility. It's supposed to allow us to iterate and change ideas and move projects more smoothly. And so I think anybody who's part of that needs to have a lot of partnerships, more so than previously. It's because now it's more practical. And if you're going to go for a best of breed system, then what you want to be doing is picking your, as you said earlier, you want to pick your vision mixer from one place and your playout server from somewhere else. And as a vendor, you need to be kind of ready to integrate and work with a number of people. So you want to have these partnerships kind of understood already. You want to be using a place like IBC to set up those conversations and be in the right place technically to move on that. Similarly, as broadcasters or end users, it's a matter of making sure that you've got the deep connections with the organisations that you need, whether the vendors or otherwise. And so I think that's driven a lot more by software and more modern ways of working than previously was necessary.
And the move to software, is that at the expense of hardware? Are we seeing the death of hardware, or are the two still operating side by side?
Well, one of the things that we were looking at in one of the accelerators was how do we get that balance right between what needs to be in the cloud and what should be down on earth? And we had the opportunity to work directly with Formula E on one occasion. We took our equipment there, and Formula E weren't part of our event project, but nonetheless we had a cabin there, and we talked and said, well, what are your problems? And they're all about things that have to be super low latency effectively, like sound reinforcement like we're hearing here. We don't want that to have gone to the cloud and back because otherwise it'd be delayed. So we do need things on the ground, and sometimes that's hardware, because it could be that it's encoding and that's more efficient, and sustainability. If your videos can be hardware encoded, then that may be the right solution. Yeah. But whether it's hardware or just physically where things need to be, sometimes you're forced to make a choice, and understanding how to make that work can be quite difficult.
Were you at this year's Formula E?
In Excel.
Yes. My son was running the media desk. He was only 18. I hope he was polite to everybody, but that was one of his first jobs that he did, actually. So, do you see him? No. He looks like me. Sorry, Mark, what was I going to say? Diplomatic
I was just
answer.
going to pick up on the point that we did talk quite a bit, actually, about this. And I think, the big broadcasters and those big premium sports events, they're just not ready to take risks of moving to IP and cloud production, right? That's still some way off. But what is this halfway? Where are we in that journey? And I think we've some way to go before they will start to, I think, transform into some of those more lightweight productions around cloud.
But you did have a panel with France Television about how they covered, if you've not heard about how France Television covered the Olympic torch relay in France, they did it all using 5G.
That was multicast, 5G broadcast, which is actually directly to handsets.
Yes.
Which was a kind of genuine. I mean, it's been talked about for a very, very long time. And finally, they did it.
They did. And if any of you ever get to go to an event with, I'm going to get his name right, Romuald Ras from France Television, he is he's so passionate about what they did.
What did you say his name was?
I'm going to get his name.
Did you say? I thought you said Roland Rat.
Honestly, I've interviewed him 3 times.
That's how long they've been talking about 5G broadcast.
Yeah. Romuald Ras.
Okay.
And he's brilliant. And I'm going to plug TVB Europe, but if you want to read more about it, pop on to TVB Europe's website. We did a big feature with him in our May issue, and he's just, and hopefully, I know he talked about it a lot at IBC. I'm hopefully going to catch up with him soon to sort of have a look back at how it all went.
And actually, one of the things I think you've written about in the past is about how Sky TV for the US elections may be going to remote productions, but actually they're using fibre, aren't they? Because they need that guaranteed reliability.
Well, they're actually, and I'm going to plug TVB Europe again. Sorry, everybody. Brand new issue out today. The cover feature is with Sky News about they are collaborating with NBC this year. So they will have all of their presenters at NBC's Washington Bureau using the Meet the Press studio. But they will be driving the majority of it back in London. And if anyone from Sky's here, I'm really sorry if I've got that wrong, but that's pretty much what they told me. I'm always a bit nervous, talking about something, and then somebody from the organisation is here going, "You've got that wrong."
Don't worry, it'll only be on YouTube later, so we can check it out then.
But yes, they are. That's how they're going to do it. So as Neil Finlay from Sky put it, this is them pushing remote production to the next phase, and it's fascinating. And I'll actually be in the States for the election, so I had to say to them, "I'm not going to be able to watch it," and they said, no, YouTube, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I'm going to spend the night of the election just basically going through my remote control, seeing as much as I can watch.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
As possible.
I just want to talk about the IBC core pillars. There were sort of 3 core pillars. So the shifting business models. I know we've touched on some of these things already. The transformative tech and the people and the purpose. So the shifting business models, I've already spoken about the Enders analysis, which again has teed that up. But one of the questions I'd like the panel to consider is how are traditional TV networks adapting their content and business models in response to streaming platforms? What are you seeing out there? Russell?
I think that one of the you've got to work out which part which type of TV we're talking about. So if you take news, for instance, that's a tricky one, because part of the adaptation is that you need to be delivering to linear channels, but you also need to be delivering to whichever socials you want to deliver to. And so that brings up 2 or 3 kind of major problems. One of them is editorial, of course. If you're going to cut a story down to 2 minutes or 1 minute, then it's really difficult, presumably at least, to all the time be able to be as balanced as you would otherwise. But then that creates a problem which we see over and over again for different reasons within the industry, and that's complexity. The complexity usually through scale, through numbers, and whether we're talking about IP, studio-based stuff, how much bandwidth, how many endpoints, or in this case, how many versions of software, and tracking all of that, and also creating it. So one of the problems is, well, if I'm going to be delivering to 5 platforms, then what, do I need 5 editors? Do I get 5 times the budget? The answer is no. And so how do they deal with that? So it's all down to automation and doing things with assisted tools, effectively.
Yeah.
In that instance, and trying to seek the efficiencies that otherwise you wouldn't necessarily need to be.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add
looking into
anything else?
I was just going to say, well, they are probably, getting more efficient and automating many of the processes, particularly in news. There are other roles now, right, in news, because misinformation, disinformation is now meant, they have to have huge teams that verify news. And I think BBC has got something like 60 people in BBC Verify now. And, CBS confirmed, and they've all got their own initiatives around, trying to do that. So whilst they might be automating, they might be competing on different platforms and scaling down the sort of maybe the length of news reports and the formats, they're actually having to scale up on things like making sure that they remain a trusted news brand. So there is all sorts of sort of fluctuations, I think, taking place. But I think on that one, the big battle, I think, is probably against social media. It's less against the actual streaming of platforms, but it's more about social media and the problem of lack of regulation, I think, in the social media world. And that's where I think there needs to be more dialogue between traditional broadcasters who are very heavily regulated and online platforms and particularly the social media platforms that have virtually no regulations.
Yeah. I mean, did you discuss at all, it's going to sound really dull, the EU AI Act or the Product Liability Act, which is going to cover AI and software for the first time? This has just been passed in the EU. It is going to affect the UK without boring everybody because of that Northern Ireland Peace Protocol. And obviously AI cross boundaries anyway, cross borders. I mean, was that up for discussion? Because you talked about AI, that those regulations are coming down the track now, and it does mean the onus will be on the likes of broadcasters to actually be transparent in how they're putting stuff together, and it becomes more complicated.
We've talked about it a lot within that news and disinformation project, particularly, and I think one thing that's become clear as well. It's not only is it about ensuring that everything is verified, and you go to the nth degree around the provenance of that content or that image or that video, and around all sorts of other things, detection tools and things. There are tools that are coming. They're not good enough at the moment. But I think the important thing is it's about educating your audience about the lengths you go to do that as well. And that's why there's a lot on BBC about what they go through to verify a story. And I think that's a huge part, educating audiences on what to look out for as well in fake news, etc.
I mean, Flick, just you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think I was just going to pick up really on what you were referencing from the Enders analysis about, although there is so much a greater range of choice and platforms and content formats and audiences that want to consume content in different ways, linear TV is going to be around for sort of a long time. And so what we're very much working on and supporting our customers and our broadcasters with, particularly those that are public service broadcasters, is enabling them to be able to operate more efficiently as possible in this sort of channel world where they've still got to deliver all of their public service broadcast obligations in the terrestrial world, but also half their audience or a percentage of their audience are now moving more online on different platforms and channels. So how can we engineer our network, all of our new solutions to have that sort of mixed economy capability, so that if you need to switch in and out to the cloud, if you need to deliver via, some content via OTT, you can do that versus, keep it on the traditional route. And, that's something that we're seeing. We thought it would be a sort of a transitionary phase that we'd have to sort of work through, but now it's much more of a sort of longer term sort of strategy and project that we're having to look at to see, how long is this going to kind of carry on for, this sort of mixed economy world.
And that's really useful to hear that, Flick. And those 3 pillars, how did that sort of form your marketing thoughts when you were putting together the stand? Because obviously those 3 pillars were endemic everywhere, weren't they? They've infiltrated every aspect of IBC, whether it was the conference programs or the clients there, the stands there. But were you sort of conscious of that?
Yeah, I think we are, and it kind of aligns to how we try and, I guess, sort of operate within the sort of the role that we have within the industry. We're very much sort of at the heart of the sort of the UK industry anyway, and obviously we have global capability as well. And we support an end-to-end supply chain that has many partners, many different technologies, parts to it, and it's constantly evolving. So I think when we think about how can we appeal, how can we create an environment that people will want to come and experience and participate in, it's really around how can we hopefully show that we understand the challenges and the landscape of the industry, where it's going, bring that to life through the products and services that we're trying to showcase in a way where hopefully it's I guess real life, and we can show it in action. That's the kind of technical part. But then it's also about bringing the right people together, and as well as having a sort of technical showcase, a key part of what we try and do when we're at the event is to organise networking events, which I know many people may have been to. So every evening we kind of have an open house on our stand, offering drinks and networking opportunities, and we partner with some of the industry bodies, we partner with vendors and suppliers, and broaden the sort of the mix of people that will come to the stand. And it's a great way to introduce people. Sometimes people from the same company come along and they don't know each other, and this is sort of how ridiculous it is. So I think, as we were talking about earlier, it's very much about that sort of melting pot of ideas, sharing. It's impossible to get round the halls. So, if you can meet up for an hour and chat to sort of 10 people whilst you're there, you probably save yourself however many hours traipsing around trying to sort of, do it yourself. So yeah, that's very much part of it.
And I'm going to open up to the audience in just a moment. Jenny, I know you're keen to say something.
I just wanted to say that one of the things from my point of view at IBC, one of the things I'm really enjoyed seeing in the last few years is how IBC is engaging with the work that's being done around diversity in the industry. Because IBC is one of the few places where you'll go where the women's loo queue is almost much shorter than men's. But it's changing. This year I did have to queue for the first time. And I know you've been doing a lot of work with Rise and Gals in Gear and also around sustainability. And I think that's really important, because these are the places where we can all get together and talk about these things, because they are so important. It's so wonderful to see. I go to so many events where I'm the only woman in the room, and it's so wonderful to see such a mixed audience here tonight. And we've got young people and people that have been in the industry for a long time, and that's one of the things that I think is so important. That we were talking about these younger people that are watching things on their phones, and actually Flick and I were talking about TikTok earlier, and that I want to TVB Europe to appeal to a range of people, but TikTok scares me. And I can't. I don't.
Someone in the know, Mark, is now on. Are you on TikTok?
No, IBC actually went on TikTok first.
You made your debut, yeah?
Yeah, and I think I've been on there, but
I don't have time. That's my problem. I don't have time. I don't even have time to take photos when I'm at the show, let alone do videos.
Yeah. But that point about attracting talent, isn't it? I suppose that's under that people and purpose. Was that part of that remit, that actually you know, it's such an interesting industry, but are we doing enough to attract younger people into the industry?
I think there's some great initiatives, or clearly some great initiatives, and our owners and RTS has, you know, now got a sort of an MBA, haven't they? I think a mini MBA.
Yes, yeah.
Which I think is brilliant. I've actually, one of the things that would be most debated on the council is talent and skills, and I've actually started now a little subcommittee of people, and there was no shortage of volunteers from all over the world, ABC in Australia and Globo from Brazil and many others that wanted to be part of this, in perhaps trying to bring more of their younger people to IBC in the future and getting involved. And I think in the accelerators again, we've had some brilliant broadcast engineers, haven't we, from Channel 4, Tia Shenton and Sean Jones, who've led the Formula E project that we did around Connect and Produce Anywhere. Holly Keane from BT Media and Broadcast, and many young apprentices that are new to the industry that can actually roll their sleeves up and get involved in this. So it's a great vehicle for development of young people as well. But
you can never get complacent, can you?
No, absolutely not. They're brilliant, and I'm just thrilled about that, and that's something I want to drive, but not just on a sort of a UK or a European basis, actually on a more global basis, which is something I'm
And actually, I mentioned about Ben Shepherd couldn't be here tonight, the Young Technologist of the Year, RTS 2024. Just a couple of comments that he made. He talked about LED screens replacing green screen. I don't know if that's something that you spotted, Russell, on your rounds. He said it's interesting to see the companies are taking to create large LED setups. I'm sure this is going to appeal to people in the audience, to display graphics in the background being easier and now cheaper. We like the sound of that, especially with things like ghost frames. It makes the entire setup really appealing. Now, I sound like I know what I'm talking about, so I'm reading that out. But Russell, if you could explain.
Yeah, sure. So it's a type of virtual production where the background just changes depending on what should be there if it were real.
I know what a green screen is, by the way.
Yeah. No, but this is what it was. So, but the benefit of having the screens behind you is twofold. One is that you can actually see, everybody can see what should be there. And then the other thing, going to what Flick was saying, is it's one of the few new technologies that we can actually touch. And so actually, when you do go around the shows, it's a very compelling technology.
And a third point, it's incredibly sustainable compared to, well, I mean, I know we're using power and everything, but you've not got to send, you know, they used it a lot, as everyone I'm sure knows, for The Mandalorian. You could do that back in LA, not send everybody into the desert to film those scenes. So it's VP is...
It helps, and I think in general it tends to look better. And the exciting thing about ghost frames is that they can change the pictures on the screens faster than the human eye can see, and you can have different cameras with different shots from different angles, and the humans don't notice.
Lovely. Ben will be delighted that you've brought that comment to light. He also was, he found versatile button offering appealing. Don't we all? As someone who uses a Stream Deck, he says, within my development process, it was fun to see their Stream Deck Studio, which is built for broadcast systems. For me, any approach that creates customizable hardware is the right solution for longevity. Look at these people nodding. This is Ben is going to be delighted. I hope he's streaming this at the moment. Again, is that something that you think the audience would be keen to find a little bit more about?
Well, I've not seen the specific demo, but you know, Stream Decks are LED OLED buttons. It's a bank of buttons, and because they're so dynamic, you can basically do anything you want with them. And so what this shows is that there's some joined up thinking happening between, like, well, we've got some buttons, you can go buy some buttons. That's the normal consumer aspect, but now they're thinking, well, look, this is how we build it into a workflow. They're used all over the place.
Yeah, great. Well, at least Ben has been represented here tonight. So, with all that we've spoken so far, I'm sure we've missed out loads of stuff. But you're here, hopefully, to pick up on some questions and some ideas and insights that you'd like to share, or maybe ask a question of one of our panellists. Gentleman here caught my eye. Got a couple of roving mics just there, that one behind. Thank you. Lovely. If you could just quickly introduce yourself and just talking about a sentence, just say who you are.
That's right. My name is Yun Chung. I'm from PA Consulting. We are management consultants, so not really related to broadcasting. But I have a personal interest in broadcasting because my family is from that background. And it's more a question for you, Jenny, as well. You might be able to relate to this. My father's been a pretty successful news broadcaster for the last, for about 30 years, something like that. Whenever I ask about technologies, what lies behind those cameras he uses and editing equipment, he paid no attention whatsoever. He never thought about that kind of thing. He still can't tell the difference between 5G or Wi-Fi. Question to you is whether that trend is going to whether that is a very old way of thinking, or do you see people's career merging? People who are always focused on broadcasting suddenly start jumping on the technology side, or technologists who's always working in broadcast engineers suddenly become a news broadcaster.
That's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because we were just talking about, encouraging people into this industry. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is, these kids at schools who are learning things like coding, that is perfect to come into our industry with. But they have no idea that that happens within TV or even film, because all they see is the people that are on the front end of that camera, that glass. So I do think there is we do need to educate people within the industry and outside of the industry, and all the amazing roles and the amazing people that work within this industry. That's something that you might be able to tell I'm quite passionate about. And in fact, we've been. I'm going to go back to TVB Europe because it's my bread and butter, but. I discovered today we've been doing this series called Meet the, and it's for absolutely anyone that works in the industry. And we ask them 5 questions about how they got started, what they love about being in the industry, and that kind of thing. And last week we published our 150th. And I'm so proud of that. And you can come on our website. Our website, by the way, is completely free. You can come on the website, search Meet There, and you'll see all the different people. And I'm really keen to sort of make more people aware of that, because, like you said, I've gone completely off topic as usual because that's the way my brain goes. But there are so many different roles and so many different things that people could do in this industry if we just made them aware of what's available.
So there's an educational piece to be done as well. I hope that's answered your question.
There's sort of a risk as well, because I think the lure of Silicon Valley and the sort of the big paychecks that you can get from going and working, at Google or Microsoft, if you're good at coding, if you're into that kind of software and IT, your automatic sort of school of thought is, I'm going to go into that environment, not necessarily into broadcast. And that's what we found when we've been having these sort of debates with our customers and partners that we work with, is that the challenge is, making our industry more attractive, more cool, because in the old days telly was really cool. Everyone wanted to work in telly, but I think because IT has evolved so much, there's now greater competition, and it's harder to sort of win over that talent.
Just to add, I come from the mobile industry and 23 years or so, and from analog to 5G, and just your question reminded me of how mobile operators thought they could be broadcasters as well, right? And all of the Vodafone Lives and the Go 90s that were multi-billion-dollar disasters. It shows how hard it is to be a content distributor, to be a content maker and distributor. And I think that's an example of where tech necessarily, just because you have the networks, you have the screens, it doesn't mean that you can still be a provider of compelling content, right? And do what the broadcasters do today, which I think is a lesson. But going forward, I think on the technology level, I think we will see all sorts of players and consolidation among the IT industry to support the media industry.
Yeah, I think you've had a very thorough answer there, haven't you? You've got the microphone. Did you want to ask a question? Yeah, good.
I'm going to now. I've got the microphone. Kieran Doran here, newly appointed CEO of M2A Media, as Jenny was pointing out. Compelling content is fascinating because it's not just compelling content, I think, in our industry that drives us. It's mission critical. And I think that's why the IT move into broadcast in the 90s failed. And it's a move not through the IT wanting to take over. It's by stealth through the technology. But that brings me to the question of tonight and the title of this evening, which seems rather controversial in one sense. And it's probably more controversial because what are we, an hour and a quarter into this, and we haven't spoken about AI at all. And yet, my company streams OTT for live events, for DAZN, sports, and I know it's only football, it's not life and death, it's more important than that. But it is critical, it is mission critical, and yet I met several industry colleagues and non-industry colleagues at IBC who are in the business of buying and selling organizations. And one of the key things that was common to them was, what's your AI story? Now, my answer to that is that you don't let a computer take over when it's mission critical. You really don't. Just look at what happens on LinkedIn or what happens on social media, or what happens even on Sky Broadcasting or any broadcaster when you let it take over with the subtitles. It can be rather interesting, especially if it's a political commentary. So where is AI in all of this? Is it just another buzz? Are we being dragged along by another buzz and it's really not there? Because the reality shows that from tonight and from IBC, it's not there.
Yeah, because obviously the title, what caught your AI, what caught your attention? We did mention the AI a little bit, I must say. Maybe the AI Act, that was about it. But a very good point.
Practical applications at the, in Hall 14 that were definitely, you know, very, very kind of much more tangible, pragmatic applications. I think, you know, I think we've moved on from this AI being your strategy and AI being now this tool that you can apply in different ways, right? I mean, I just take that announcement today, for example, from Wimbledon. You know, this is big, that they're doing away with the line judges after 147 years, and because AI is more reliable. There's a right there in sport is a tangible move to AI, for example. That
through IBM.
Through IBM, yeah. And I think we're going to see more of that, particularly in live production, live sports. And I think there's a really practical change that's quite significant.
So yeah, just in terms of that, because that's a very good point. Let's address AI then. Did it feel like it was all consuming around IBC, or was it very much, well, it's in the background? Were people willing to talk about it?
Well, as I said to you, I thought that was all I was going to talk about, and actually it wasn't. But actually, on the very first day of IBC, TVB Europe, our sister title in the US, TV Technology, TV Tech, and Coretta Research published initial findings from a survey we did over the summer, asking people within the industry for their thoughts on AI. And we've only so far published the initial thoughts. We're going to, quick plug, be doing a special webinar at the end of November, which we'll be announcing probably next week. You guys have got the exclusive there. It's all about exclusives in my world. Where we asked people, you know, we asked vendors and we asked broadcasters. And what we got back from the broadcasters were, yes, they're interested in AI. They like the idea of it being used in the back office. So, you know, things, I don't know, dealing with invoices, dealing with, they're not seeing it yet for
the creative
side. They're not, no one's near that. And one of the really interesting things that we saw was that they expect, and again, we haven't now revealed this yet, but they see vendors building AI into existing products, not into brand new products, and that's the thing that they're quite interested in. So it was fascinating, and we've got loads of more information that I hope you'll come and join us in a few weeks when we talk about it more. Rob Ambrose, if you know, anyone knows Rob Ambrose from Coretta Research, who's just a brilliant guy to talk to, and weirdly I went to school with his brother and didn't even know Rob. Yeah, it's fascinating the way that, because it's all been, oh my God, AI, it's gonna, you know, it's the creative side that have been particularly where it's been talked about how it could take over creativity. But actually, from our side, AI is a thing that could be a really good thing. It can automate processes. It can, you know, you said, Mark, you said about subtitle, or Kieran said about subtitles. You know, there are ways in which AI will help us.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should be quite as scared of it as maybe we've been led to believe.
I'm going to ask all the panel, but Flick, I just want to come to you next. You know, I'm sure BT, all the staff in the morning or just before the event, there's a stand briefing. You may lead it and you're saying, right, this year, these are going to be the key themes that we're expecting people to come along. This is our answer to this. This is our answer to that. Did that happen with AI?
Not really, no. I think, I mean, for us, we're obviously building a lot of automation into our network, into, you know, software is running a lot of what we do now. And when we have conversations with the broadcasters, our customers, they're looking for more efficiencies within their own operations. And so I've heard some talk about things like using AI to remotely control cameras. So rather than having physical camera operators, you can have a sort of simplified camera setup and you can just control it let AI control it based on, you know, the movement of the ball or the player or whatever's going on, tracking in that way. I've heard examples of it being used more in sort of the post-production, so, and particularly on, you know, sort of colouring, designing, speeding up some of those sort of processes that you go through getting content ready, but not really much in a live environment. And our sort of head of futures, who we obviously is involved in lots of conversations, his classic line at the moment that we almost sort of caption and put in the office is, "I'm so bored about talking about AI and the fact that there's actually nothing to talk about," because I think we haven't yet really seen. So when we're asked about AI, it's really how are we trying to help, you know, automate and bring in those efficiencies so that you can do more with less, because that's the biggest challenge at the moment. Nobody's got any more money, you know, budgets are the same or less, and yet you need to do more. So how can AI help you solve those problems?
But I was working with a client today, which I can't name the name, where they talked about enterprise level, only 1% of information has been ingested for AI to work. On a public consumer level, you're 70-80%. But actually on an enterprise level, it's just at the starting point. So you can't build those data sets in the way that maybe we think we've done already.
Sort of pool, aren't you? You know, we're all going to be saying the same thing.
Yes.
Co-pilot will just keep running around.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, Mark, you obviously took part in those discussions, part of the accelerator program as well. Is there anything specifically this year out of the 8 projects that speaks to AI?
Yeah, we had 3 projects, which we put an umbrella of the AI Media Production Labs, because it was all about production in a sense. But we had 3 projects. One was using it to predict the next frames of action, say in sports, for example. Verizon led that project, you know, to help directors have an idea of what might be coming next in that context. It was really interesting. And then there was another one about audience validation. So creating personas of your audience to give you feedback on programming, because there's a lot of these focus groups that broadcasters do, and actually creating personas of your typical audience member. And this was by a very radically sort of new public service broadcaster in the Netherlands called Trafford. And it's designed, it's black, it means black in, and it's designed for multicultural audiences.
Yes.
So they wanted to use AI to get a sense of what those audiences really wanted. And so that was a very interesting use of it. And then there was another one which was kind of looking at end-to-end storytelling, which Rai, the Italian broadcaster, not the venue, the RAI developed this end-to-end storytelling using AI for production. And ITV were very much. I just encourage everybody to go and have a look at those as 3 kind of use cases, very specifically, of things that we've been looking at in the context of AI over the last. But it does. When we were talking about this, I was thinking about what happened to the metaverse.
Yes, yeah. Do you remember
Nobody's mentioned that one tonight.
Do you remember we did a Future of TV panel, which you were involved in, and we had a gentleman from Basingstoke, and he was coming up with all sorts of wonderful ideas, and actually. Yeah, maybe we'll bring him back to see how many things have actually happened or not. And Russell, from your point of view, how much was AI at the front of your mind and in those discussions?
So, yeah, I mean, I think you might be right that investors are still looking for an AI story, and you see that in the more public stocks and shares and the way they go up and down. So the fact that perhaps as a small industry we've matured a little bit doesn't necessarily mean the other people have followed us. But if you think about, if you just try and categorize what AI does, if you throw away or ignore for a moment all of the content-based uses, there's not a lot left that isn't just helping us out. So whether it's going through the logs and finding where the problems happened, or just putting all of the data together for you so you can go through it. One use I saw was it more or less allowed you to abstract away in one implementation I saw where files were. And I think if you look at a mature technology, I'm not trying to claim that AI is mature yet, but the same for broadcasting. With ATSC 3.0 and DVB-I, the idea is that you don't really care anymore where the programs are coming from. We only used to care because satellite had more channels, and so we wouldn't have that, and then we wouldn't, or you'd use analog, or you wouldn't want to do that because it didn't look good. And then, right, so you were choosing, but you as a viewer, you knew why you were choosing, but nobody wanted to choose to put the satellite box on instead of the DTT box. And so all you really want to do is press it on and then see what's coming. And
yeah,
and similarly,
endless possibilities.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, was there an acronym that slipped through there? I think we'll
you covered DTT earlier.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
And you.
We've already talked about it in long form.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll come back to the acronym.
With files, particularly if you're thinking about asset management across news or archives, you also don't really want to know where they are. And as much as possible, using AI, not only can you search and say, oh, the one with people with blue shoes on it, but you can also then not really care where that is. And so you're abstracting away the complexity, letting people focus on what they're getting.
But you can also monetize it more efficiently, right? If you've got big archives.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You look at what, I know Open Origin, this fantastic little company that was working on one of the accelerators, has just been doing exactly that, going through the archives of ITN and they can actually monetize that because all the data, metadata and tagging it is all there.
Yeah. I hope that's answered your question. I'm conscious I haven't asked a question over this side of the audience. Otherwise, the feedback will be terrible on me later. Saying she only got questions from that side of the audience. Gentlemen's audience, did you bring your microphone with you tonight? Brilliant. Hello there. Welcome to you.
Hello. Good evening to the panel and to the rest of the audience. I'm Sanjeev Prasad. I started off as an engineer quite a long time ago, as you can see with white hair. In all sorts of areas like digital transmission, switching, echo cancellers for people like BT. It's a long time ago, but I also worked across consulting and management and program management as well. So my question, I don't want to band another term around apart from AI. It's nothing new in that respect from a principles and ideas perspective. So RI, for example, I don't know what's wrong with that. So that's real intelligence. And the question I have is more around the content and the source. And I think Mark mentioned earlier, you've got 63 people, I think, in one of the groups where they're verifying the content. And it's the integrity and the source of that content, particularly between the regulated and the unregulated world. And, social media, there's a whole raft of stuff out there in the internet world. So the question is really around that. How do you maintain that integrity, and because every individual now can actually publish information and, on the YouTube, on TikTok, all sorts of things. How do you maintain the integrity between that? And what does the audience actually believe in, in terms of the information that's coming out?
Oh, who wants? Go on.
There are some industry initiatives, I think. C2PA, which is the Content Provenance Initiative, which is being led by some of the big vendors, but also BBC, I think, is very active in that, amongst others, which is, really trying to drive exactly toward that new way of ensuring throughout the chain that you have a way of ensuring that any manipulation of that content is kind of visible as part of the package that comes with it. I mean, we all know what happened with Princess Catherine. She very, very innocently manipulated an image of one of her children, and before you know it, that's gone into the chain very innocently, and Reuters and others have picked it up and said, actually, we can't. This has been manipulated. So it's that kind of thing where we'd be able to see where it's been manipulated by whom, and all the way through the chain from creation to end distribution. And that's what some of the things we've been examining within the accelerator. So content provenance, fake detection, and collaboration and sharing information amongst broadcasters globally are three of the things that we've been doing in the accelerator project. But there's also Project Origin, I think, is another one out there.
Yeah.
Industry initiative.
The AI Pact that the EU, you may have mentioned this earlier.
Yeah, the EU AI Act,
No, it's the AI Pact.
Yeah.
So it's got people like, and I'm going to forget all the people that I wrote about now, but it's I think Adobe and Cisco and they are, that's trying to stop against things like deep fakes, which of course we may well see a bit of in the next 4 weeks in the run up to that thing we were all talking about a little while ago.
We've seen a few already. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I think there is a lot of work going on. I'd forgotten about CTPA until you mentioned it, actually, because I've written about that before. I come at this obviously from I work for a publisher. That's what I do, and there's a lot of work going on in publishing around AI and what we can and cannot use AI for. So I'll be honest, I use AI for transcribing because it's the worst part of my job, but I can't use it to write the article for me. But actually, I'm starting to see people coming on to our website, ChatGPT coming onto our website, because people are obviously typing something in and it's finding our content, and it's a big thing that I think we're going to be talking about. I think we'll be talking about it again at IBC next year.
Yeah, just scratch the surface. So just very conscious of time, I'm going to get some final thoughts from the panel just a second and get a little bit more about the IBC Accelerator programme, in particular that 5G in a box. I just want to hear a bit more about that in just a second. But just to give a little bit of an advert coming up for one of RTS's events coming soon in the autumn, which you might be keen on joining in. It's in conversation with Sir Trevor Phillips from LWT. Do you remember LWT? London Weekend Television. Oh, who could do the music? Who could do the soundtrack? To Sky News, Sir Trevor obviously has a very unique career in broadcasting, and he's going to discuss his career more with his Sky News colleague, Kamali Melbourne, and that's taking place at the Everyman Cinema in King's Cross on Tuesday, the 26th of November, and booking is now open on the RTS website, so I think that sounds great. Now, I think somebody kindly queued up that the RTS has a mini MBA programme. It's a major new educational project from the Royal Television Society. One of the key proponents is sitting in the audience, who goes by the name of Phil. I won't embarrass him anymore, but I know he's given his whole life up to this over the last year. It begins in 2025, and this modular online delivered self-paced course covers TV and streaming media through a business lens. And I know RTS have written a lot about this. You can can't start the course, obviously, because it's not 2025 yet. Expressions of interest are being taken now. So if you're interested in finding out more about this or signing up, please visit the RTS website or the RTS Academy website at rtsacademy.org.uk. So that's just a little bit of things coming up and something you might be interested in. That's going to give some amazing insights, interviewing some brilliant people into all these different areas, whether it's industry, context, programme making, business functions, future outlook, director's cut. So I think that's going to be a real game changer for the industry. So well done to Phil and his team for putting that together. Just some final thoughts from the panel. Mark, if I can start with you, and in particular, you mentioned about 5G in a box, which was one of those amazing accelerator programs that made it right through, as you said, from the Queen's funeral to the Olympics. Definitely. So, what did that really achieve, and what are the expectations going forward?
Before I go into that, you reminded me with this RTS plug.
Yeah.
Ian did ask me to plug. You're going to be potentially doing a best of technical papers, aren't you? I think in January with the IET.
Yeah, best of papers come back to IBC this year.
Yeah. You did ask me to mention that.
Yeah, good.
That was that's happening in January. Watch the IET space.
Yes. Anybody else want to do a plug? We'll go around the room.
But yeah, the 5G in the box has been remarkable, really. I mean, it started back in 2021, and we were at the show, of course, and it was developed by the University of Strathclyde with the BBC. Quite a number of other broadcasters came and got involved in it, but QTV, the sports production company in Scotland, really, it was 2022 when they saw it as part of the accelerator program. And we'd done some work with BT Sport and MotoGP, where it went to some live feeds using this on the media bike. And, it just sort of roller coaster. It was really sort of just did literally accelerate to be used by QTV on the Queen's funeral, Edinburgh Airport, where you couldn't cable the runways and things like that, where they needed a solution. Then it was used on the coronation by the BBC
And
it basically replaces huge trucks with loads of cables and everything. I mean, it's so neat and small, isn't it?
Oh, well, it is. And it's, you know, if you can get the spectrum from the regulator, which we can for these big public events, at least these days, there is shared spectrum available. But I think then to see it go to the Olympics and, you know, real innovation by like having Samsung phones, which were uploading ultra high definition video on the sails of the windsurfers, which you'd never have been able to do with cameras before because they're so lightweight, on the actual windsurfer sails and on the boats, on the bows of boats, and you could hear and see the crews talking to each other. And on the opening ceremony, 350 of those cameras underneath bridges, on the team boats. You saw kind of unique pictures from the teams and from that ceremony that you'd never seen before. So that won an innovation award at IBC this year. But, you know, it's actually up tonight for a technical Emmy for the coronation with the BBC in New York. So, you know, that just shows you through collaboration, through this hands-on, fast track experimenting, we've got there with this way faster than any of the mobile networks have.
I think that beauty of the accelerator program is that you've got all these contributors from all walks of life, from all different parts of the industry and outside the industry coming together. And you're cracking problems quicker, aren't you? People are not working in silos. How generous people are with their time, and they generally have a commitment to say, let's try and solve this.
Or understand it better.
It's
hands-on learning. It's doing is learning. And
.
That's what the ethos is. And you know, we've got some remarkable champions. We had more than 350 companies involved in this now. Over the last few years. So it's
wow. Well, again, and we've got that date in February. You mentioned again. You say the
12th of February.
12th of February.
12th of February.
Here.
No. Actually, we're at the BBC Radio Theatre.
Okay.
In Broadcasting House.
Lovely. Okay, very good. Jenny, final thoughts from you. Just something you want to leave the audience with when it comes to the IBC review. Can't mention Liverpool.
No. Don't know what to talk about then. I just missed the game. It's awful. It's the game we got beaten as well. I just want to reiterate what I'm not saying this because Mark's here, but I dread the build up to IBC, and then once I'm there, I just love it. I love meeting people, seeing people, hearing about what everyone's working on, it's inspiring. IBC for me is inspiring. It inspires me toward with content for what I do in my real job every day, and for throughout the winter. I am, as I said, a squirrel who collects the nuts and gets excited.
Lovely.
Sorry.
And hibernate with all that stuff. Brilliant, Jenny. And Russell, I know you've described it as vibrant, this year's show. So just what you want to leave some thoughts with the audience about what you'd like them to think about, and maybe if they want to find out more.
Well, I mean, we've talked about the IBC accelerators and how we've shown kind of momentum of movement, not only this year, but over the past few years. And I think I just wanted to highlight that as a show, we've also seen a significant movement in terms of the types of things. We mentioned some of them today, like the talent, focusing in on talent, focusing on young people and on diversity. There's LGBTQ sessions. So, that started all recently. And it's only by doing more of that, and I'm sure there's more to come next year and the following years, it's only by doing that we can really show and be proud of the face of our industry, and so that when people come to IBC for the first time, whoever they are, they feel the same way as Jenny and really enjoy it. And the other major thing that's happened over the last few years is more and more of it is online, and you can watch it on video. So, genuinely, IBC, the website and IBC 365, there's a lot for me to catch up on because I didn't see it all, and that would be a really good place to go.
And Flick, will it be your 8th year next year?
I hope so. Although, of course, you keep setting the bar higher, it's harder and harder to get there. But yeah, I think for me this year it did feel really buzzy again after the last sort of couple of years bouncing back from COVID. And of course we had, sadly, the Queen's passing the year before, which just put a real kind of dampener, and also so many people were literally turning around in the airport and going home again as well for operational reasons. I think there was definitely a different mix of people, or sort of a broader mix of people. Interesting, I think, how the days felt. I don't know whether you're doing some more analysis on that, but traditionally it's always been busy right through the weekend, whereas for us this year we found it was much busier sort of Friday, Saturday than it was sort of Saturday, Sunday. We saw a sort of a change in that, and I don't know if that's something that we need to look at collectively, is because people do give up their weekends. You know, it's hard work, it's a big commitment, it's expensive as well. It's expensive for companies to send people and to support people whilst they're out there, and you don't always get a break either. So you tend to end up working, you know, sort of 2 weeks back to back, which is tough. But I think, you know, if you can go and embrace it, like we've talked about, then you know, it's still, you know, the biggest thing that we invest in as an organisation from a kind of sales and marketing activity, and it's still the thing that kind of gives us the greatest kind of exposure, engagement, and return as well from a sales and marketing perspective as well.
Can we use that quote?
Yes, I say on
only if
note,
I can get a discount next year.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Yes. Yeah, can you use that?
Yeah, we'll negotiate.
Yeah. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much, Jenny, Russell, Flick, and Mark, for your thoughts tonight.